I found that time is wanting when it comes to preparing for paper 2. So this time I did paper 2 also in a good manner. I think my paper 1 was largely sorted, but this time my focus largely was on paper 2. And the score also reflect that. Ma'am, I've got relatively higher marks in paper 2 as compared to paper 1. So the focus, ma'am, was more on revision and answer writing this year.
Okay. Hi, Sidaq. Thank you. I had to coordinate that bit. I think I should be visible now. I think earlier I wasn't.
Yes, ma'am, you're visible now. You were
Okay.
visible earlier as well. But yeah,
Great.
everything is fine.
Great. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So now moving back, how's it been? 6 attempts. So kaisa tha the entire journey and the ups and downs. And I think the first question I want to ask you is what was your Achilles heel? A lot of times बच्चों को कई प्रीलिम्स लगता है, मेंस के अंदर भी कईयों को कोई पार्ट ऑफ जीएस लगता है या ऑप्शनल लगता है. तुम्हें क्या लगता था कि यार ये अगर सॉल्व हो जाए प्रॉब्लम, माय जर्नी वुड बिकम अ लॉट इजियर?
Okay, ma'am, firstly, brief about my journey. I think that would put a few things in perspective. When it comes to prelims, ma'am, prelims was not much of a hurdle for me. I cleared prelims in my first attempt, second attempt. In the third attempt, I reached the interview stage. But unfortunately, in the fourth attempt, I was not able to clear prelims. And there were two reasons for this. First was there was very uh, I think there were 7 or 9 days between the day on which the result was announced and the next prelims. So I think I was passing through a bit of emotional roller coaster at that point of time. So probably that overwhelmed me, and I wasn't able to clear the prelims in my fourth attempt. And in the fifth attempt, I again reached the interview stage. I missed the cutoff narrowly by 9 marks. And with God's grace, from this time, my name is there in the list. And when it comes to the areas, ma'am, which I think pulled me down in my earlier attempts, I think, ma'am, the area where I was lacking was in the mains portion, the answer writing part. I was focusing quite a lot in collecting good content, making notes, but I think when it comes to the mains, having good content and being able to remember them and putting them on paper, they are two separate things. So my answer writing was I was doing answer writing, which I think was not sufficient to a level which I should have done. This year, I focused a lot on answer writing. I focused a lot on getting mentorship from my mentors, which earlier I was not doing because wasn't writing a lot of tests. So I took a lot of feedback this time, incorporated the suggestions which were made to me, and I think that, ma'am, helped me to score good in this year's mains.
Right. Now, coming to mains especially, and you said answer writing. I think ये एक बहुत बड़ा मुद्दा होता है, and especially अब मतलब मुझे तो ऐसा लगता है हमारे दिन फिर भी ठीक थे. तब चाहे हमें चीजें ढूंढनी पड़ती थी, अब वो प्रॉब्लम ऑफ प्लेंटी आ गया है. तो
Yes.
वही वो लग रहा होता है कि अच्छा ये भी पढ़ ले, ये भी पढ़ ले, ये भी पढ़ ले, बट टू ट्रांसलेट इनटू द इंटायर इंफॉर्मेशन इनटू एन आंसर is very difficult. In fact, the more you know, the more difficult sometimes it might get also. Right? So were there certain practices that you maybe incorporated कि अच्छा अब ये इस तरह का क्वेश्चन आया है, इस तरह से मैंने क्वेश्चन पढ़ना है, इस तरह से मैं आंसर को देखूंगा, स्ट्रक्चर करूंगा. तो आपने ऐसा कोई प्रोसेस, डिड यू वर्क ऑन इट, or what were certain do's or don'ts that you incorporated especially when it came to answer writing, right, जो आपने प्रैक्टिस से बार बार करके सीखा?
Ma'am, in this year's mains, I did a few things which I'll like to share. Firstly, ma'am, I think I focused a lot when it comes to the non-core part of the question. The type of questions that are usually getting asked nowadays is firstly, there is a statement and then there is a question. And I used to miss the non-core part, that is the statement which was prior to the main question. So I used to start my introduction by putting the things in perspective using that statement first. And I think somehow that shows the examiner that the student has understood the question, because you put the things in context by doing so. And secondly, I prepared a lot of templates for different sections of the syllabus. For example, when it comes to society, I prepared 4 or 5 different templates. In ethics, I had around 8 or 9 templates. So I knew if there is a question on a philosopher, a quote is given. There are 3 quotes in ethics paper, and then there is the name of the philosopher, and we have to write the answer that what does this quote means to you. So I prepared different templates. So this time, I think my preparation level was relatively better. I knew that how I am going to address different parts of our syllabus, be it society or security or ethics. So those templates helped me in the sense that it helped me save time. Besides this, I was able to generate a lot of points. So I think probably that could be one of the reasons which helped me increase my marks in mains, especially in the ethics paper.
Right. Now, coming specifically to PSIR, right, it's an optional which can be very loved. It can be an optional which can become very hated also. है ना? तो
Yes.
हर चीज पे डिपेंड करता है. Now,
Hmm.
सबसे पहले the question of why arriving at PSIR. And in my experience as a teacher, I've encountered a lot of students, है ना, जो आके बोलते हैं कि मैम हमें न्यूज देखना बहुत पसंद है, इंटरनेशनल इवेंट्स बहुत पसंद है. You know, it gets very interesting. You feel in the heart of things, and things are, you know, bubbling and very thrilling. And you have to give them a word of caution कि PSIR optional is not all of this, right?
Hmm.
It's going to be much more boring than you expect it to be at times, right? So what was your approach to PSI? Did you also approach the option शुरुआत में क्योंकि limited वो होता है या कुछ के अच्छा बहुत you know हमेशा ही कुछ ना कुछ चल रहा होगा और it's only going to be led by current events or dynamic affairs? What was your approach towards choosing and then continuing with the optional?
Ma'am, as you said, this subject per se is very interesting. There are a lot of dynamic things, but as you also said, there is a large portion of the syllabus is static, which could be boring at times. But the reason why I took this is first because of my interest. Secondly, ma'am, I did my graduation in B Honors Political Science. So I had my base, my foundation ready. So these two, ma'am, largely were the determining factors why I took PSIR as the optional.
Right. Acha, now when it comes to PSIR also, what was your strategy? Because again, PSIR का syllabus बहुत detailed है, बहुत लंबा है, but बहुत detailed है. तो how much time because you spend considerable time with the paper also, है ना? तो आपने शुरुआत में जब ऑप्शनल चुना, कितना टाइम आपने ऑप्शनल प्रिपरेशन को दिया? उसके बाद स्पेशली इन द सब्सिक्वेंट अटेम्प्ट्स, it becomes very difficult for students के how do we keep tabs on the ऑप्शनल ऑल्सो, बट साथ में हमने PSIR को भी करते रहना है, साथ में हमने मेंस को भी करते रहना है. एंड बहुत बार बच्चे ये करने लगते हैं कि क्या मैं दोबारा फाउंडेशन रिपीट कर लूं, है ना, कि दोबारा हम वो पूरा पढ़ लेते हैं कि शायद तब हमारा निकल जाए. तो व्हाट वर योर सर्टेन थिंग्स दैट यू डिड से इन योर फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट एंड देन सब्सिक्वेंट लर्निंग्स दैट यू इनकॉर्पोरेटेड इन योर लेटर अटेम्प्ट्स एज वेल?
Ma'am, in the initial attempts, I think I put in a considerable amount of time in preparing PSIR, because as an optional, I think PSIR is very lengthy, especially the section A of paper 1. So once I was done with the notes and basic understanding of all the topics, after then ma'am, I focused more on writing the answers, going through the PYQs, going through the topper copies. So this was my approach largely, and I focused once the notes were ready. I think I put in a lot of focus in revising things and in making sure that I interlink different concepts. For example, the concepts of paper 1 section A with the concepts of paper 1 section B. And I did the similar things in case of paper 2 as well. And I think in my case, ma'am, paper 2 was a neglected part when it comes to the optional preparation, because since the paper 1 is very bulky at times, I found that time is wanting when it comes to preparing for paper 2. So this time I did paper 2 also in a good manner. I think my paper 1 was largely sorted, but this time my focus largely was on paper 2. And the score also reflect that, ma'am, I've got relatively higher marks in paper 2 as compared to paper 1. So the focus, ma'am, was more on revision and answer writing this year.
Correct. Okay. So now PSIR answer writing specifically, when it comes to the optional, a certain kind of specialization is expected. And again, PSIR का एक advantage भी है, disadvantage भी है, the amount of overlap that it has with GS2. Because कई बार बच्चे कंफ्यूज हो जाते हैं कि अच्छा जिस तरह से मैं GS2 लिख रहा हूँ क्या वैसे ही लिखूं, या फिर how do I differentiate say my GS2 answers from my PSIR answers specifically. Right. So, were there any specific things that you incorporated in your answer to make it, be more specialized?
I think when it comes to PSIR, the thing that makes a difference of a paper two answer of PSIR paper two answer as compared to the GS2 IR portion is that in PSIR we are expected to focus more on analysis. Facts are also important, but I think the larger focus should be on analysis. We have various scholars in PSIR and they give various theories, which we study in paper 2, section A. So I try to link those theories with the IR portion. So I think it adds some amount of analysis to the answers besides the facts that we write. And I think, ma'am, on reading those answers, the examiner does get the notion that yes, the student has done the basic things and he's able to interconnect the concepts. So I think, ma'am, probably that could have worked this time.
एक दूसरा बच्चों का बहुत फेयर होता है स्कॉलर्स, हमने कितने स्कॉलर कोट करने हैं, मैम हर आंसर में स्कॉलर कोट करें। पेपर 2 में स्पेशली कई बार ऐसे जो पर्टिकुलरली डायनामिक होते हैं या कई बार से कंपैरेटिव पॉलिटिक्स के अंदर इस तरह के क्वेश्चन आ जाते हैं जो कि आपने पढ़ा होता है, बट यू हैव टू रियली रूट द क्वेश्चन इनटू थिंग्स दैट यू आर विटनेसिंग अराउंड यू, राइट? सो दे आरंट ऑटोमेटिकली जनरेटेड, स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड नहीं होते, बहुत एनालिटिकल होते हैं, तो उसमें डायरेक्ट स्कॉलर्स कई बार नहीं आ पाते, राइट? सो व्हाट वाज योर अप्रोच टुवर्ड्स स्कॉलर्स के अच्छा मैंने इतने कोट करने हैं, जिस आंसर में मेरे को स्कॉलर नहीं आया फिर मैं क्या करूं, तो उसको आपने कैसे अप्रोच किया था?
Ma'am, I think the scholars that we read in paper 2, section A, those are the most important ones. Uh, a lot of students quote C. Raja Mohan and other scholars that we read in the newspaper. Though I think they are also important, but as compared to them, the scholars that we read in the section A of paper 2, those are the most important because they have given the different theories. And by linking those theories with the current events, I think that provides a better impression on the mind of the reader or the examiner. So this year I did not quote much scholars that we read from the newspaper, but I focus more on the theorists that we read from section A. And I read those theories and understood them in a very thorough manner. So that might be helpful, ma'am. I'm not sure
Right.
what
No,
exactly
no, no.
worked
I think that
because
works very well because again, as you said, उससे दो चीजें हो रही हैं। पहला, आपका जो डायनामिक चीज है आपने उसको एक कॉन्टेक्स्ट में फिट कर दिया है, right? That it's not just an open-ended event that you can view it from such and such theoretical lens, which then a particular theorist is offering. So that happens to do two things: that you have a core name that you can provide in your answer, plus that also makes the examiner understand कि आप हवा में बात नहीं कर रहे हो, you can situate an event with the larger theory जो कि चल रही है in the background. And I think that is something the students really need to understand. Because in fact, कई बार बच्चे बहुत non-descriptive scholars को भी quote कर देते हैं। अब newspaper में ही we have a lot of people writing, you read ORF, उसके अंदर there will be a lot of people. Now the examiner possibly won't know all of them. So yes, the heft of the name of the scholar and the theorist also matters in when you provide that backing कि अच्छा इस नाम के context में मुझे ये आ रहा है. So I think that's a great suggestion, which I think also puts things in perspective for students because तुम कितने scholars याद रख लोगे?
right.
Like it's humanly impossible to do all that much. So I think that's a great advice. एक दूसरा question Sidaq that I want to ask. I think it's the most routine question that a lot of us also get. And no matter how many times you say it, but I think coming from people who've cleared the exam, who've scored great, it carries more heft as well. Right? So a question is कि हमें optional में points में लिखना चाहिए कि paragraphs में लिखना चाहिए मैम, optional के अंदर हम diagrams बनाएं या ना बनाएं? And I'm sure all of us also had those questions at certain points in our preparation.
Right.
So
right,
how
right.
did you look at writing the answer from this very rudimentary point of view?
Ma'am, I think as I said earlier, in PSIR, it is expected that we put in a lot of analysis in our answers. And if we write the answer in the format of points, probably the analysis part justice won't be done to that part. Because when we write in point format, we have a tendency to write 2 or 3 lines, then skip to the next point. But there are time, for example, the question, I think there was a question on Russia this year, and I explained the theories of Halford Mackinder and walls. So I think if I'll be writing those things in point, the tendency would be to write 3 or 4 lines and then shift to the next point. And I might not be able to do justice with their theory by linking that to the Russia question. So I think when if we talk about doing analysis, then paragraph format is relatively better. And when it comes to putting in diagrams, especially maps, I think that is important, ma'am, because on the map we are able to write a few things, pinpoint a few places, so that does help the examiner to understand that which are the things you are pointing to or what are the things you want to convey. So those things could be helpful, but I think flow charts might not be a good option in PSIR. They work in the GS portion, but in the optional paper, I think we need to focus more on detailed explanation and analysis, and flow charts might not be a good way to do those things.
Right. And as you said, I think a lot of times students forget that paragraphs can be a great way of providing flow and connecting to the next topic that you're going to talk about in the paragraph. I mean, essay के अंदर हमें वो समझ में आ जाता है. Somehow जब हम answers लिख रहे होते हैं, वो हमें नहीं समझ में आता कि अच्छा यार, points के अंदर they all seem very, cut. But when you write in a paragraph format, the things seem to gel into one another, providing that continuity जो कि आंसर में particularly optional के अंदर काफी ज्यादा चाहिए होती है. Now, अच्छा, another I think a basic question what students often ask कि prelims में जैसे हम बोलते हैं कि इतने टेस्ट आप लिख लो, है ना, और कुछ नहीं, अंदर की एक सृष्टि आ जाती है that I did enough. Right? Was there a number that you wanted to hit when it came to PSI that I'm going to at least write these many answers before this attempt particularly, right? Was there a number that you were hitting, or was it something that, as long as I know I've done enough, ठीक है.
You're talking about test for PSR, ma'am?
Tests, खुद आंसर्स लिख रहे हो सकते हो, PYQs अटेम्प्ट कर रहे हो सकते हो, है ना, मल्टीपल चीजें होती हैं. ये बस वो होता है कि अच्छा, बच्चे बोलते हैं मैंने 200 आंसर एटलीस्ट लिखे हो, है ना, या फिर मैंने 250 आंसर. Was there such a number that you had कि मैंने इतने आंसर तो अटेम्प्ट करने ही करने हैं?
Ma'am, the idea was to write answers till the time I am myself not convinced that I have prepared good enough for this paper. So for certain papers, it could be in say 2 full-length tests, but in others it could be 4 or 5. For example, this year I felt that I need to work or put in more efforts when it comes to ethics syllabus and tests. So wrote I think 4 or 5, I think 5 FLTs for ethics. While for the others GS papers, it was 2 FLTs. For PSIR also, it was 2 FLT per paper. So I think it depends on your level of satisfaction. Once you derive a certain level of satisfaction that, okay, now I'm done with the preparation for this paper, you can stop there. So it could be 2 tests or 3 or say 4 or 5. So it depends on your level of preparation.
ओके. एंड लास्ट रिवीजन के टाइम पे, ठीक है, अब नोट्स बने होते हैं, है ना, आपने फाउंडेशन की बहुत अच्छी तैयारी की होगी. डिड यू गो बैक टू योर नोट्स, और डिड यू हैव आल्सो लाइक अ सीरीज ऑफ शॉर्ट नोट्स और समरीज और समथिंग दैट यू हैड रेडी जिसमें आप कंटिन्यूसली रेफर कर सके? एंड दूसरी चीज, करंट अफेयर्स इन PSIR बच्चों को बहुत बड़ा हुआ होता है ना, करंट अफेयर्स. एंड आई मीन द सिचुएशन इज आल्सो सच दैट we tend to fan those views also कि अच्छा ये नहीं पढ़ा तो फिर पता नहीं क्या हो जाएगा. So with regard to both these elements, short note making and coverage of current affairs, how did you go about it?
Ma'am, I had short notes ready for all the topics when it comes to PSIR. And one thing which I did was that I used to create a margin on the right hand side and I used to write their interlinkage. So, say if I'm preparing for John Locke, then in that column, I'll write that which are the topics of the other scholars or different concepts which I can link with the different topics of John Locke. So, on 1/4 of the paper, I used to write the interlinkage portion, and on the remaining, I used to write the important points from the topic of, say, John Locke or the other scholars. So this is how I made short notes, 1 page per topic. And when it comes to the current affairs, ma'am, I used to, in my notes itself, using the sticky notes, I used to integrate different events or current events with the notes that I've already prepared. Because in paper 2, section B, and in paper 1, section B, current events are very important. So I used to keep integrating the new events in my notes. So this is how I used to do them. And there was a separate copy for current events which I used to prepare. And on the sticky notes, I used to write that okay, this is the new event that has happened. And once when I used to revise the topics, I knew okay that this is the new event that has taken place, and then I used to refer to my different copy in which I've written the current event in a more detailed manner. So this is how I used to interlink the events, the new events with the notes that I've already prepared.
Perfect. One last thing, that, as you were talking right at the beginning, that UPSC can be a very long journey. है ना, पहले आप प्रिपेयर करते हो, फिर पेपर लिखने लिखने में ही आपका 1 साल चला जाता है, राइट? एंड देन इफ आप फाइनल स्टेज पे पहुंच के भी कुछ गड़बड़ हो जाए, you're back to square one, right? So it can
Right.
sometimes be very demotivating, and especially because हमारे जो कुछ सबसे productive years of our life होते हैं, and especially when we're looking at our classmates, our cousins, relatives asking this, that. So how did you keep your morale high? कि, this is something I want to do, and I'm going to do it.
But I think my parents, my family, they played a very important role throughout this journey. They were the ones who kept me motivated. My mom, dad, brother, grandparents. I had actually the complete support of my family. So I think in that regard, I was very blessed. There was no pressure from my family that, okay, you have done so much of attempts or X amount of years have gone, and now you should try to look for another alternative. So this is one thing, ma'am, that kept me going. Secondly, ma'am, there were, or like I told you that in the last attempt, I missed the cutoff narrowly by 9 marks. So I myself knew that I was very close to the final list. And if I put the efforts in a more or if the efforts are directed in a better manner, I do the things rightly, probably the things would work, or there was very high probability that things would work this time. So that's something, ma'am, which kept me going.
And I think, it's so blessed to have parents and family that's so supportive. I'm sure even more than you, their happiness is going to be through the roof. So, many congratulations to them. And, I hope more students get such supportive parents and grandparents, because if you have that correct atmosphere, and if you have that someone saying ki koi nahi, we have full confidence in you, even when your self-confidence is low, you can really derive that thing out of them. So, that's great. And I am, congratulations to you, and many more congratulations to your family who made
Thank you,
this
ma'am.
possible. Right. So Siddak, I think that's about it. Any final words that you'd want to give to students, who are appearing this year? Prelims is around the corner. Many of them who again would be possibly writing the paper again. So any
Mhm.
words for them to maybe help them through this journey?
Ma'am, I think in this journey, self-confidence is very important. Because if you lose the confidence, you actually get defeated prior to the examination. You do not lose in the examination hall. You have lost the battle even prior to that. So staying confident is very important. And in this journey, ma'am, I do think that along with effort, luck also matters. So there could be, or say on prelims day, luck is not on your side. So it does not mean that you prepared in a wrong manner, but staying confident and picking up your tools again, doing the efforts again, that's important. So one must not feel dejected. This year, I know every year 2,000 people are not able to make it to the final list. I've been in that position for 2 years. So staying confident, ma'am, I think is the most important thing, and having faith and belief in your preparation is important.
Correct. Chalo, that's great, Siddak. Many, many congratulations. I hope you have a fulfilling career ahead, right? A
Thank
wonderful
you, ma'am.
career ahead. And I hope you get the best service that you have chosen for, and you make the most out of it, right? I think now is when one journey is ended, but now a tougher journey is going to begin, which is going
Right.
to demand a lot out of you, right? So the exam prepares you well mentally for that. So I'm hoping you do that and you make your family, us, the country, everyone even prouder, right? Thank you
For sure,
so
ma'am.
much,
Thank you.
Sidaq, for giving us your time, right? And for sharing these words of wisdom with students. I'm sure it's going to be very motivating for them as well, right?
Thank you, ma'am.
So, and happy celebrations.
Thank you.
Chalo. Okay, this is the mark end of the formal interview, but great going, Siddak. तो क्या तुम्हें लगता है अभी 157 तो what had you opted for in your services का list?
Ma'am, first was IAS, second was IPS. So if we look,
अच्छा,
yes, so I'll be getting IPS,
हो
ma'am.
जाएगा.
Yes.
Nice. And you've taken Punjab as your first preference या कोई और लिए?
Haryana was actually my first preference. So
अच्छा,
in the second group, it
अब तो
was
डिपेंड
MP.
करेगा. हाँ,
Yes, it would depend upon the number of outsider vacancies for the general candidates in Haryana. So let's see, ma'am, how things work.
चलो. Hopefully it all works out for you. ठीक है. And
ठीक
if
है,
you're
ma'am.
ever in the city, most welcome. मैं तो अभी नहीं हूँगी,
Sure, ma'am.
but most welcome. I'll come see you.
Okay,
ठीक है,
ma'am.
चलो.
Yeah.
Okay then.
Thank you, ma'am.
Please
Okay.
give our heartiest congratulations to your parents as well.
Okay, ma'am, for sure.
चलो, see you.
Okay, ma'am. Bye-bye.